Welcome to the Panic Button. I'm Nina.
And I'm Jessie.
And today we're reacting to Candace Owens.
How do we feel about Candace? I like Candace for the most part.
I like her. I don't agree with her on everything, but we don't need to
no.
agree on everything in order for me to have respect for Candace.
I think that's the problem with the left right now. That's the biggest problem with the left, is that they want everyone to agree on all things.
Yeah, that just isn't going to happen.
Yeah, I like people like, I like Candace Owens. I even like Matt Walsh. I do not agree with everything Matt Walsh says.
No.
But I do like him as a individual.
The thing about the left is that they don't want to talk. It's like you don't believe everything I believe. We're not talking. I can't talk to you. No, you're the enemy.
I will say I don't think they're all like that because I'm talking to some liberals trying to change their minds about a few things.
Are they really part of the libtard group?
I would say they're not a libtard because they're willing to discuss things.
So they're not part of the Klan?
I think the libtard, that specific title, specifically comes from expecting other people to agree with you just based off political identity. You said you're liberal, so you must believe that trans women are women.
Okay.
Hello. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Do you believe that God is how he's described in the Bible?
Do you want to get more specific?
Just generally, do you believe in what the Bible says about God?
I believe in the Bible, yes.
Perfect. Are you aware that the Bible says that God is all-knowing and all-powerful?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay. So if God is omniscient and omnipotent and he knows exactly the outcome of his creation as he's creating it, why does he create people who will be queer? And I know the knee-jerk...
Queer. The word queer.
Are we not going to hear what she has to say to
No,
that?
we have to stop at queer, okay? Because we need to know, what does queer mean exactly? Wikipedia definition of queer. It's an umbrella term for people who are not heterosexual, meaning so we're gay, so...
We fall under queer.
We fall under queer, or are not cisgender.
So we're half queer.
So what's what's cisgender? Let's go to Wikipedia for this. So cisgender describes a person whose gender identity corresponds to their sex assigned at birth.
Someone who was born.
Someone who is not transgender.
Yes.
So we're not transgender. So are we half queer?
It was coined in 1994 as an antonym for transgender.
Wait. So are we half queer then? Right? Because we're homosexual.
No, because here's the thing. This is how I view it.
Yeah, but this is...
Hang on.
I'm looking at the terms and the definitions.
I'm saying, are we queer 20 years ago? Yes, because queer was an insult.
A slang term for homosexuals.
The F word that doesn't rhyme with
homosexuals, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say that. I forgot. Glad said homosexual. Is the slur?
Homosexual. Did we just leave middle school?
Because, we're playing by their rule. So I guess we're halfway to queer. We're half queer. Okay, I thought queer just meant straight and...
Queer meant straight? Since when?
Queer is like a straight person who doesn't identify with their... I don't know.
What?
Someone who dresses like a dude but's a chick but is straight but doesn't identify as a lesbian or a trans.
Queer just means weird. And by that definition...
Everybody's queer, in which case you can't be a minority.
Queer just means weird, which was adapted to homosexuals. Bad word. Was adapted to homosexuals because they were not the norm. Therefore, they were weird.
Yeah,
and
but
since,
now there's a new definition.
And since that's the case, it was deemed as queer. Now we're at this place where I don't want to be qualified as queer.
When I hear the word queer, I think, oh, you're sad. You have nothing interesting about yourself. Neither do you have the energy, drive, or patience to actually focus on something that would make you interesting enough. Instead, you just have to say a sentence and now you're interesting. When I hear someone says, I'm queer, saying I'm queer, I just think, oh.
Well, queer is just a label.
You're so sad.
It's like me saying I'm a Pisces.
Language.
But it's just a label. I'd never call myself queer.
Oh my God, I'd slap you. I'm sorry, but...
I'm queer. You'd never say that. I'd slap you. I'm queer. I'm so Queer. So queer, it's crazy.
Queer.
Queer, queer, queer.
Okay, let's continue with the video.
Reaction is he creates us with a free will. He creates us with the ability to choose. But how do we reconcile this supposed free will with his omnipotence and omniscience? Because if he knows exactly how he's creating us, as he's creating us, he's choosing the bits and parts to put together to create the person who will become. And he knows all of the things of that outcome. So how do you reconcile
a couple
that?
things I want to say to this. The first way that I want to answer this question is to go back to a point that I made earlier, and I probably should have pressed on it a bit harder. I actually think humanity is creating a lot of these letters. I really do. Okay, when I graduated high school, there wasn't a single trans person, and now all of a sudden it's like everyone thinks that they're trans, and kids think that they're non-binary.
This is true.
This is something you
when
mentioned,
I
yes.
was in high school, there was not a trans person in sight. I only heard of trans, and it was the word transvestite when I watched Taxi Cab Confession. Never heard the word trans, never heard the word non-binary, heard queer as a slur, never heard the
this.
word cisgender. I was the only gay person who was outed in my school. Now, I knew there were a couple other gays, but would they throw themselves on the fire for the other gay who was getting outed? No.
That's
No,
why the term
there
queer
were
was
two.
invented, though.
There were two in there that I knew. One was a butch dyke, and the other one was,
A gay man.
was a gay man. Yeah, but they didn't come out. No, I had to jump on a knife. Well, actually, the knife was inserted into me. No, we don't want to say that on YouTube.
Ayo.
So yes,
To the extent that you're
and
saying,
I'm older than Candace.
we talked about this before, and I said just because you didn't know someone doesn't mean that there wasn't like a handful of people who were transvestites in a different school, in a different place, somewhere when you were in high school. It wasn't not a thing. People were transvestites when you were in high school. They just weren't in high school with you.
They were in New York City.
I mean, how long has Buck been transitioned for? 30 years? 30
Yeah,
years?
like I said, Buck would have been someone I would have seen on Taxi Cab Confessions, or Maury, or Oprah, or Ricky Lake, or Jenny.
My point only is that
Jenny Jones?
it existed to some extent.
It did. It existed like 0.01% of the time.
Because those are the people that were actually suffering
Actually, yes.
from an actual
the
ailment.
key was here. Actually. 'Cause, yeah, actually.
You listed what, 3 gay people in your school? They weren't out, but they were. There was at least, it was you and 2 other people that you knew for sure were homosexuals.
Did I know for sure?
And not at the time, but now.
I'll say this. Yes, I knew for a fact they were gay. Did they say they were gay at the time? No. But I knew.
I had all of like 4 people in my school, and I went to a small school.
But
don't get me
I
wrong.
was the one who got bullied for being gay. Even though the 2 popular people in the school in my grade were flaming as flame could be. The butchest of butch and the flaming of flame.
Yes.
Yeah. I got some shit to work out still.
I forgot what my point was gonna be, but I was one of maybe five homosexuals.
You had 5? Did you have a...
But we had a middle/high school. So that's covering 6th through 12th grade. That's six grades. And there was 5 of us that were homosexuals. That was it. So you can't go off and tell me that, like, what is it now? Like, 50% of the population's gay? I can't believe that. Because
Yeah.
I watched these kids.
I
I watched these kids growing up.
No.
And none of them were into girls. I'm sorry, none of them were homosexuals except for the 5 of us. You know what I mean? Like,
I know that if I was living now, in today's day and age, and I was going to high school, I would have gotten laid a lot more.
I mean, I did not get laid. I had 1 girlfriend. That's what I mean by restrictive.
Right, but at the same time, I do have to say that a lot of these people who are saying they're gay are not.
How many?
And I'll gatekeep
Right.
that shit right now.
You said you'd be
gatekeep.
You said you'd be getting laid more, right? But how many of those people would be actually potential candidates for a relationship, and how many would be just experimenting to figure out what they like?
1%.
I'm sorry, what?
1%.
I asked versus, so which one would be the 1%?
1% would be the ones who are actually...
Exactly. That's why
Yeah.
that's why despite
Yeah,
having...
I think all these people who are coming out as non-binary, queer, gay, baby gay, I think it's a bunch of shit. I think it's bullshit. I think most of these people are just bored. They're boring. They're trying to make themselves more interesting. They're bored with men. I don't think they're actually real.
No, and so my point, these individuals believe that being homosexual is a fix, but they're not actually. So
No.
A realistic statistic for people now being accepted as gay and it not being such a problem would be something as like, oh, there was only 3 of us, and then my generation having like 5 of us. That makes sense because that's the number slowly, gradually like increasing, and like less people feeling stigma against it, right? It doesn't make sense to be like, I had 100 kids in my class and 40 of them were gay. You know what I mean?
No, because they wouldn't say they're gay. They would say that
Sorry,
they're
queer.
queer, and then I would know who was actually gay and who wasn't. Which would be anyone who says they're queer isn't gay.
Which is why I mentioned what I was mentioning, because a realistic change would be something like, oh, there's only 3 of us that we knew of. Oh, there's only 5 of us that we knew of. And then maybe out of a class of 100, there's like 10 gay kids. Maybe. It doesn't make sense that it would jump to being such a high number, because I think right now it's at like 40% of Gen
That's
Alpha.
how pathetic Gen Alpha is.
I don't want to.
If it's 40% of Gen Alpha, then that's very pathetic. That means that they're not interesting. They're not learning languages. They're not learning an instrument. They're not making themselves, like, they're not learning, they're not taking up hobbies or learning sports, martial arts. They're just boring ass people who are too lazy to do anything about it.
So 1 in 5.
Therefore, it's just easier to say a sentence.
1 in 5
I'm
Gen
queer.
Zers identify as LGBT, which means that if that's true, and I'm Gen Z, if I had 100 kids in my graduating class, 20 of them should have been gay.
So 19 of them are lying.
That's
If that's the truth, then 19 of them would be
No,
lying.
because 20 of them would be gay based on the numbers that, like, I was saying.
Right, which
was 5, not 20. It's literally a quarter as much. That's a realistic. That's what I would consider a realistic expectation versus what we have today.
which is just everyone being like, I'm queer. It's like,
'Cause that
okay,
gives them
I
brownie
guess,
points
I
or
guess
something.
I have to, you're queer.
What's actually happening is psychology in the classroom being used as an evil, right? And it's borderline satanic psychology, convincing children against their own creation. I can't think of anything that's more evil than confusing a child. So half of the letters, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what queer means anymore. There's so many letters in that thing. I can't. It gives me dyslexia. But it really does. But what I will say to you is that none of this, I didn't graduate with queer. There were, when I graduated, men that were attracted to other men, and there were females that were attracted to other females. So I'm going, and I've always been interested in this. It's a very good question. Like, why, if we believe that, gay homosexuality, if we believe that sodomy is a sin, why would God create this? And I have a person that I work with who's he's a Christian. He is a gay man. And if you're wondering how that works, because he does not engage in sodomy. Talking to him has been one of the most fascinating things ever. What he explained to me is that he believes, first and foremost, that the overwhelming majority of people that are gay or lesbian are not actually gay or lesbian, and they have unresolved issues. He says he has daddy issues, didn't grow up with a dad in the home. And a lot of the times, once he said that, I started paying attention to a lot of lesbians that are in the public sphere and all.
This is something I've brought up before. Show me a lesbian with a good father.
Show me a woman with a good father.
And that's always the answer I get.
Show me a straight woman with a good father. There are very few.
Yes.
They do exist. And there are very few lesbians who have good fathers as well.
It's
but
a chemical thing, in my opinion.
I don't think society has anything to do with being gay or lesbian. Nowadays it does, because people just want to jump on the gay train and be special. But for the real ones, which there are few, you and I, no.
I was Christian. Maybe I don't know where I stand on that actually today. But I was very Christian when I was coming to terms with the fact that I was definitely a lesbian. And I don't know how other people reach a conclusion with that. My end conclusion was, how could God make me love and hate me for it?
Because your love is,
No.
your love's evil.
No, it's not. Because you've been the first-hand account for it. Do you think my love has malice? Do you think that I come into this with
But
a
you
personal...
were born with one specific function, to procreate, lady. So go procreate.
But real
What you're
quick-
doing is all.
Real quick before you go off on your, I'm Nina, I'm gonna make a joke. But before you do that,
Yeah.
I have a genuine question is, do you think my love offers malice? Do you think I have bad intentions? Do you think that I am looking to harm or hurt myself or the person I'm with?
No.
Exactly. So why would God create such a love in me where I love and care for someone who happens to be a female?
Maybe it's the devil who's creating a love in you.
Wouldn't my love have more malice then? Wouldn't the relationships not
Maybe
be something that
you're the mallet. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what they would say.
But that's why I literally I approach this conclusion on my own because I realize my intentions are to marry someone and be happy. It's not to fuck someone over and just get my own pleasure out of it.
It's not to procreate.
I mean, it could be, but not necessarily with a man.
But the only way to procreate is with a man.
No, but there's different ways of doing that these days. There's more than enough kids that need to be adopted. There's more than enough ways to have a baby without having to fuck a man. Sorry, without having to sleep with a man.
I agree.
I'm trying to dial back on the swearing, I know.
Spoken about in their past. I'll give you an example. Ellen DeGeneres, Melissa Etheridge, about the fact that they were molested by men when they were younger. So that could be, a reason. It's a choice, not the way that you're actually born or created, right? I thought that was fascinating. Then he said he thought that there was really, in all of his experience, very small minority, almost non-existent of people that are actually born that way. And I was fascinated by that. I said, why do you think that? Again, I'm giving you his theory, not mine. He says because he believed that by not engaging in acts sexually, that it allowed them to create more, that they were meant to dedicate their lives, to the church and to creating things that are beautiful, like architecture and things of that nature, and not engaging in sodomy. Now, I personally I believe.
This is another belief that I've noticed.
What?
I've been talking to a guy friend lately, and I've noticed that this is something that mostly men
What?
think. If
What's
you're
that?
not focused on sex, then you will produce amazing things, hypothetically, in their eyes. If you don't touch your dick for a month, you could become the president of the United States.
But that doesn't have anything to do with women. And women being gay. Women aren't led by sex.
No, that's why I'm saying this is something that I'm seeing that is a very man-oriented thought process.
Yeah.
Which is if I control myself and say that sex isn't a thing, if I push it off, then I divert that energy towards something else. So clearly sex means a lot to men.
Yeah, see, I don't know much about gay men. I don't know how much sex runs their life, so it's
I
kind of hard to tell.
highly doubt a skilled architect getting some in the butt is going to make him less of a skilled architect.
I don't know. It all depends. Will he become obsessed with sex? Is it a thing that men become obsessed with sex?
I think
yes,
that-
it does.
I think there's
How
a healthy
often?
balance.
Men are more obsessed with sex than women are. To what degree?
I mean,
Now,
based-
if you
based
can
on-
get it as much as you want from other men who are equally as turned on as you are, because men are just obsessed with sex.
You know what the lesbian equivalent of this is? Anyone who's a lesbian has just been fucked over by men.
I think he's coming from it just specifically and strictly from a gay man point of view.
Yes.
Because this has nothing to do with gay women. Gay women, we absolutely do not run off of sex.
No.
We run
I mean,
off of relationships and
we
like
like it.
cohabitating together, not like
you
tell
live
me
off of-
one lesbian brothel. One.
I can't
One
even find-
lesbian brothel.
I can't even find a lesbian bar that doesn't have a man in it.
All of this stuff is being created by humans, and I'm very interested in having those discussions. And we, by the way, should be allowed to explore these options of whether or not we are manufacturing lesbians, gay people, trans people, simply using children who always go through a phase. You're going to go through a phase of rebelling against your parents. You want to be different. And instead of offering kids cigarettes, now they're like, what if you want to be trans, right? And then suddenly everyone's like, that's what I am. I think
Exactly. Everyone's so mad about cigarettes and vapes and marijuana. But would you rather have them smoke one cigarette or have them lob off their fucking genitals?
that a lot of times that's actually what it is, and a lot of it is just being manufactured in the classroom for people who want to be different.
I do think that's a good point. How much of it is I'm different, I'm special, so therefore I must be queer, versus I like the same gender. If it's a cigarette, they may hate it and never pick up cigarettes again.
But if you picked
Gender-
up a cigarette and everyone went, oh my God, you're so brave. You smoked a cigarette? So brave, so brave. They would be smoking all the time.
Yeah. Because it used to be, smoking was a bigger issue because of social reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Social smoking was an issue. Now we're offering this idea of lobbing off your genitals
And your boobies.
pumping yourself full of hormones that aren't meant to be in your body
And puberty blockers.
for the simple sake of feeling
Special.
Wow. I think that this is where things like Christianity can actually help. Not like, you know.
I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. I get it.
But to give them some, because Christianity is like, you're special to God. And if that's enough for you, you don't have to find other reasons in life to be special.
Yeah, it's better to be special to God than special to some pedophile like Jeffrey Marsh.
Or special to someone who thinks you're only special because you said you identify as something different than what you are.
Yeah.
That does not make you special.
No, saying a sentence does not make you special. Saying, I am a queer person does not make you special. Sorry, a sentence don't do it for me.
Every single person in this world has looked at their parents at one point or another and said, I'm different, I'm special, I'm not here for what you want me here for. In one way or another, every person's done that. You're not going to find it from changing your gender identity.
Maybe not
or
every person,
labeling
but
yourself
yeah.
queer. I'd say that most people have had to talk to their parents and be like, listen, your dreams are not for me, or what you think is not important because I'm doing this for me.
Yeah. But what makes
it's a sense of
someone
individuality.
completely immature is when they're like, oh, my parents want me to be like this. Well, I'm going to be a man.
There's a big difference between rationally saying,
Queer.
this is not for me, and saying, f*** you, I hate you, I'm going for this instead. There's a big difference.
Well, what would Jesus say?
I love the quote where it says Jesus would be outside of the churches today, catering towards the people who are not accepted in the churches. Queer, gay, whatever you want to label them.
I don't think Jesus would be anywhere near the queers and the gays and not today.
Yes,
No.
he would.
What would he be doing? Would he be identifying
He
as
would be like,
non-binary?
you know
because
not
he has the
what
long
you
hair.
do.
Wait! But they say that Jesus is trans.
No, he'd be out there, based on what I learned and based on what I believe, he'd be out there saying, you know not what you do. This is not what you need.
Right, and they would crucify him. The queers would crucify Jesus for being like, you do not know what you do. And they'd be like, you, Jesus, burn on the cross. You are the devil. They would be completely against Jesus. They'd be like, Jesus, you're trans and you just don't know it. You're just a queer woman and you just have not accepted your transness yet. You have internalized transphobia and you just need to accept yourself for who you are, Jesus.
That's almost the exact definition of what the second coming would be like. These people have, instead of figuring out who they are, latched onto an idea and said, this is who I am. And it's just so toxic because it's not who a lot of them are. Back to the whole basis of what this was, the question that was asked to Candace. Do you believe that God makes people and allows them to struggle with any form of being, I'll say queer, but like gay, homosexual, transgender, whatever falls under that umbrella? What do you think about that question?
If I believed in Jesus, I would say yes. Yes, he does want you to struggle in order to learn, in order to grow. But then again, there are people who cannot who are not mentally capable of growing or reflecting on themselves because they are so vain.
I personally believe the Bible's been translated so many times that you can't even tell what the intention was. And even if you are to believe that's the word of God, how do you know? If you what God you believe in is the God that's true to you. So if you believe in a God that is loving, why would he hate love? That's my whole premise.
Because God gave you free will, and because you have free will, you are able to sin. And if you do not turn away from sin, then you are pretty much turning away from Jesus.
But is love not an act of God?
Well, it all depends. Is it love towards the opposite sex?
It doesn't matter. Love is an act. Love from God.
Well, there's a difference between love and sinning. And a lot of the time, people who are influenced by the devil do not know the difference between love and sinning.
If you say God is all loving and that he loves all his children, isn't that inherently saying that he loves women and men? Wouldn't God then be bisexual? So where does God have any right to tell me I'm not okay because I'm a lesbian?
I don't know.
Like
I
I
don't
said
know. This is
earlier.
why Christians have such a bad rap with the gays and the lesbians.
This is a beautiful thing since we broke from like the Roman Catholic Church, right? Is that I'm not talking about recently. I mean like thousands of years ago. Is that the Roman Catholic Church said this is what we believe, this is what is written, and this is what you must believe. When people couldn't read. Now people can read and people can come up with their own conclusions. No one knows if God is even real. It could be nothing. But your belief is dictating what you do in life.
Your faith.
That's dictating what you do in life. If my love is pure, if what I'm doing has no malice and no harm to other people, then how can you dare to say that I am sinning or I belong in hell for loving someone as well as anyone else would?
Well, you are sinning because you are not doing what Jesus made you to do, which is procreate. Don't you understand that?
No, it's not the truth.
You were supposed to procreate. That's why you have a womb. A whole womb.
Jesus made us to spread love.
Legs.
Love.
Legs.
If God is all loving and made us to love, then how can you say that a pure, unadulterated version of love is wrong? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, let's close it out because this was a very intense conversation about religion and gays and whatever the queer is.
Join our memberships. You get early access to videos.
You could send us a super thanks and be thankful that there are 2 gold star lesbians out there who's speaking out on this nonsense and also talking about religion. Hi.
Support our farm. Have a good day. Click our button. Ring our bell. Love ya. Bye.